All right, y'all. It is mother effing Aries season. Hey, y'all. I am Taylor Ursula of That's So Pisces, and I am very excited to be sitting down and talking to you about Aries season because it is about damn time. So let's break it down right away. I think we need to give a big round of applause to ourselves and each other for finally clearing this Mars ass retrograde shadow. Woo! Okay, we did it. I did it. You did it. We made it. We're free. We are out of this long, long tunnel. A tunnel we entered in September, if you can even think back that far, if you even remember what time is at this point, because holy cow, Pisces season was a time machine that pulled us forward, backwards, inside, outside, upside down. Welcome back. So this is an Aries season that is being ruled by this brand spanking new Mars that has undergone this treacherous journey, learned all of these lessons, brought us all of these new pieces of information, these new conversations, these new approaches, new curiosity. Now, in Aries season, we have the chance to apply all of that and see who we are and what we're going to do next. Like last time, I will be going through the key points and highlights of Aries season, but to mix things up a bit, I will be going more into the specifics in each of y'all's readings. So I'm going to be pulling cards for each sign rather than a collective pull. So go ahead and stay tuned for the transits and highlights, or jump ahead, click on the timestamps below to find your sign, and dive right into your reading. Okay, so last week, just a cluster of chaos, correct? All right, this season, this week, this time, we are finally stepping through a whole mess of fog, a whole bunch of emotions, a whole lot of feelings that we've had to process, and we are ready to kind of burn off the residue, step through the fire, and just start with a clean slate. And we have the chance to do so. We start Aries season right away with a 0-degree new moon. This is potent. This is an opportunity for all of us to kind of anchor down those goals that we are coming into the spring with. This is the zodiacal new year, and we're starting off with a new moon. So this is a really beautiful omen, a beautiful time to really just clarify what we've moved through, what we've released, what we're clear on. And we are especially invited to do so because leading up to this new moon, the moon moving through Pisces makes the sort of final planetary connection to Pluto before it moves into Aquarius. So this is our final planetary conversation with Pluto, which brings sort of the emotional awareness and component to everything that all of the other planets moved through last week. This is our opportunity to really get clear on who we are no longer, what we're letting go of as we enter spring, as we approach this new moon, who we are ready to be free of, what we're ready to be free of, both inside and outside of us, attitudes, spaces, connections to people, places, and things. All can be released at this time. And I mentioned that we start Aries season with a new moon. We also end Aries season with a new moon, but we'll get to that in just a second. So I mentioned a moment ago that this first new moon is our final planetary conversation to Pluto. Pluto is going to change signs for the first time in 16 years. And this is really exciting stuff. So think about where Pluto has been in your chart for the past 16 years in Capricorn. Get an idea of what you've changed in that time, who you were before that, and who you are now. And then get an idea of where Aquarius is in your chart. We're going to get a taste of this, of Pluto and Aquarius, for just a bit before Pluto stations retrograde in the summer, and we revisit the final degrees of Capricorn. Pluto makes its final ingress into Aquarius in January of 2024. So take note. Keep a log of some of the things that start to come up in this time. We'll see those themes emerge in full. in the new year. We also have Mars changing signs. So just a couple days after Pluto changes signs, Mars is going to move into Cancer. Mars will spend about 6 weeks in Cancer, and while it's there, we will be experiencing some themes of mutual care, what it looks like to have our needs be sort of bound amongst the needs of those we care about and hold closest to us, and how it is we can strategize to make dreams come true for those of us we share sort of intimate space with. While Mars moves through Cancer, it is technically in a sign of detriment. Socially speaking, Mars in Cancer is not tremendously respected. And that's because we think of Mars and we value Mars as an individual. We think of Mars and we value Mars as a go-getter, as someone who stands out from the crowd, who is able to overcome things that others can't, surpass others, and pioneer a way towards something that then the rest of us sort of follow and learn. Mars in the sign of Cancer does not have the resources to be truly independent. And this is actually an invitation to become really clear on where we are needed as interdependent components of our environment. No man is an island, so they say. And none of us is truly alone. And so we are constantly torn between this sort of battle that society puts upon us as individuals to determine how much we can separate ourselves from the circumstances that we find others in. And so, again, this sort of push and pull, and maybe not the energy that Mars as a planet wants to be in, but might be exactly the kind of energy that we need to be in this moment. Recognizing that we are stepping out of a deeply transformative time. We've been in this pressure cooker where we've had to evolve very quickly, and it's forced us into some situations and out of some situations and really pushed us to see what we allow to stand in our way. This Aries season might be an invitation to kind of touch base with where we are able to thrive in interdependence with others, not being codependent. That's where some of the more negative, some of the more stereotypical Mars and Cancer energy can manifest, is sort of forced codependency, where we're frustrated and then we don't want to take care of others, but we feel we have to in order to get what we need, and we're in a conflict. If we can instead figure out how to balance out where we need to carve out our individuality and where our self thrives in the company and in the service of others and in the care of others, I think we can begin to build a healthy approach to our theme of the year, the Chariot, right? We want two sort of seemingly opposing forces to be working in alignment. And we tend to think that it's eliminating something that allows the other thing to move freely, when really what we need is to make space for both, to find that sweet spot of balance between us and other, us and me, us and also finding that sort of Venn diagram overlap of where our own needs individually overlap with the needs of those we share space with. Figuring out how we can work together to get all of those needs met in a way that's satisfying for all parties involved, so that the needs of the individual are spoken for and not neglected, and there's not resentment that builds when others get what they need as well. Things to think about this Aries season. Something to be mindful of Aries season while we are being ruled by Mars and Cancer is any sense of jealousy that comes up. We may be compelled to criticize others, be really fixated on the origin stories of other people, or we may misconstrue information about sort of what others have and have not. This tension of, again, me versus those that I share with. And when we feel a sense of frustration coming upon us, to just allow for some ebb and flow, allow for whatever we're feeling to be real and present, sitting with ourselves as we experience frustration, and figuring out how we can allow flow into that, allow for sort of movement in what we feel, as well as self-soothing, figuring out how we are able to nurture ourselves. When sitting with the themes for this month, I received a message about recognizing that there's something that we thought was outside of ourselves that we may learn actually resonates very deeply within us. And we may be called to make moves to incorporate that into whatever our mission is moving forward. I can't tell you what that means, but I'll let you sit with that. You let me know what comes up when I bring that up. We have a lot of planets changing signs this season, y'all. You've probably heard a lot about Pluto moving into Aquarius already. I just mentioned Mars moving into Cancer, but we've also got Mercury moving into Taurus and Venus moving into Gemini. This means that everyone's going to kind of be neighbors to each other, and everyone's going to be a little bit busy focusing on their own sort of slice of the chart, if you will. We might not know what the other pieces are all up to at this time. Again, we have the Sun in Aries, we have Mercury in Taurus, we have Venus in Gemini, and we have Mars in Cancer. These are all neighbor signs. So we might find ourselves sort of busy throughout this season, kind of juggling many different things, not really recognizing what other areas of our lives we're focusing on because they're a little too close together to see each other. And so if you find yourself running out of energy, like running on fumes, make sure, again, you create that space for nurturing, for self-soothing. We might overload ourselves and not actually recognize that that's what's happening. This month's full moon is in Libra at 16 degrees, and this one's going to be a spicy one. The sun will be exactly conjunct Chiron in the moments leading up to this full moon, which means that the moon will oppose it right before it opposes the sun. This means that there might be a lot of information revealed about individual amongst others, Aries opposite Libra, and who we are individually versus who we are in the collective, amongst people we are socially contractual with. Maybe our individual needs are interjecting themselves into a broader conversation about us. There might be some tricky conversations that happen at this full moon. There might be some reactiveness that comes up. What's important is, again, to allow for that ebb and flow, allow for feelings to be what they are and be present with them, and really just remember that we are always holding on to, in the present day, wounds that originated when we were so small, so baby, and just so tender. We have the context and the perspective now to be able to understand and contextualize the events that impacted us as young people that we couldn't process back then. So if we're able to connect with other people, especially since Venus is going to be in Gemini, we're able to connect with other people, find words for the feelings that we're having, experience connection about what feels isolating, I think we can move through this time in a way that allows us to connect more deeply, more authentically, and reveal some of ourselves to others that we may have been afraid to do so in the past. Last but not least, we have a second new moon in Aries, y'all. That's right. It's motherfucking eclipse time. Now, the North and South node won't be moving into the Aries Libra axis of the zodiac until later in the summer. But for now, we get a preview of what that eclipse season and what those series of eclipses over those 18 months will look like when we have this first breath of eclipse air upon us. Now, this new moon eclipse may be a little bit messy, a little bit chaotic, a little bit cute, a little bit spicy. We've got a square from the moon to its ruler Mars. We've got a conjunction to Chiron, which is our ouchie place. And then we have a conjunction to Jupiter, which is abundant, huge, magnanimous. Then the new moon. Okay, so this could pull us in a number of directions. This could really heighten our awareness of our feelings. We might have a lot of wounding rise to the surface. We may be very reactive to one another in the face of that wounding, but we could also find some kind of philosophical meaning, or maybe even some sort of opportunity that emerges from that place. Now, remember, this is an eclipse, and you may want to consider holding off on trying to initiate anything at this time. It may be about something internal happening within you, really confronting and starting to unearth and starting to philosophize about some of your more painful experiences, and maybe getting curious about what can grow within them, but maybe not necessarily going ahead and planting that seed right away, just getting an idea of what's possible from that place. Okay, we've done it. We've broken down the highlights of this season. Let's go ahead and pull some cards.
All right. First on the docket, we've got Aries. Aries, this season is all about you, and many of the things that I mentioned are happening in your first house. Other activities are happening on your angles, which suggests that this month will be very active for you. Pluto will be entering your 11th house of friendship, and suddenly you may find yourself thinking very deeply about the power that you have in your communities, in your groups of friends. Mars moves into your 4th house, perhaps making it clear that you need some alone time to self-nurture in your most private spaces. Mercury moving into your 2nd house suggests we're focusing on your resources and the skills that you use to acquire them. Meanwhile, Venus hanging out in your 3rd house represents hanging out in your local environments, maybe making friends in your neighborhood, spending some time out and about, kind of beauty moving through the town square, if you will. So there's a lot of activity happening sort of very much in the first quadrant of your house, in your houses of self, your identity. So there's a lot of activity happening in these first houses for you, this sort of quadrant of the self. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this month will mean for you. I've pulled out our card for the year, the Chariot, as well as the Emperor, which affiliates with Aries season. And let's see what we've got in store for you this month, what you'll be exploring about yourself, your resources, your neighborhoods, and your peers, as well as what home means for you, and get a sense of what might be coming up for you at this time. Okay. All right. Okay. We've got 2 major arcana cards sandwiching a court card. This is some pretty big information. So let's look at how these themes are going to connect you to sort of the season we're moving through, as well as the year that we're currently moving through. In the Devil, we see Capricorn energy, we see Saturn energy. This certainly correlates to the maybe 3rd quarter moon happening in your 10th house, asking you to get clear on maybe what responsibility to anything your reputation is known for, anything you kind of uphold in a career space, or whatever your sense of legacy is that you are creating here. Something bound in that space is connecting you to something false. I love that this is the 3rd quarter moon space, because that will be a time where you are challenged to release something that no longer holds meaning for you, or that is no longer a viable part of the cycle you're moving through. So you've got some big ideas around what you're bound to that isn't truly for you or naturally of you, where the society we live in has asked you to participate in playing certain roles that don't actually align with what you're here to do, but maybe bolster your reputation or make you look really good on paper in a way that feels socially enticing. However, deep down, there's some part of you that knows that this is keeping you held to something that isn't healthy for you. I see where strength comes in, because this is a time where you must get clear on your instincts. I see this connected to Mars moving through your 4th house. Mars being in such a private space can feel like what we do is behind the scenes, might feel like we're not seeing maybe outward movement for a time, but really this is a call to get into your deepest, darkest kind of nooks and crannies. Get clear on what your instincts are informing you of, and also what's informing those instincts. It's time to get clear on how these instincts maybe tie you to the roles that you play that aren't healthy or that aren't aligned for who you actually are and what you're genuinely meant to bring into this world. And here's where I love seeing the Page of Wands, rather. This page is a court card and it represents a beginning. I see you being this page. And this feels very much like all of this activity happening in your first house. The new moon in Aries in your first house, as well as this Aries eclipse happening. And Jupiter being present for all of this as well. So I see you really being activated this month, Aries. Really getting an idea of the ideas that organically sort of ignite within you. And I think this is all a process that's happening simultaneously. As you're getting clear on what doesn't ring true for you and what values you're upholding that aren't actually yours, that bind you to something unhealthy or unsavory or just not meant for you, you do so by tuning into those instincts, getting clear on what am I actually being called toward? What am I actually instinctually in conversation with within me? And that catalyzing this fire of, oh, I recognize areas where there's new potential for me, especially if we do the work of clearing out at that third quarter moon in the 10th, clearing out what does not actually speak to us, what does not help us, what does not serve us, and what only brings out some of the worst of us, perhaps, or causes us to rely on vices, sort of pulls us into our base level of functioning. This is at the bottom of that and wants us to really be in a clear place of what we truly deserve, what we truly want, what we hold on to that isn't ours. And as we clear that space, we light a fire. I love this month for you. This energy feels so cleansing and it does feel very intentional. So hunker down, get clear on what is standing in your way that you have control over, that you're able to walk away from, and see what else opens up. Taurus, welcome to the table. This month sees a lot of activity happening in your deepest subconscious realm. Traditional astrology calls the 12th house the house of undoing. I think of it as the space that we share with our creator. Only we and our relationship to the universe that we live in really get to experience that space. And so happenings here tend to reveal to us what's going on in our house of mental health, what's going on in our perspective of the world, and what needs our attention that we can tend to at this time. So the sun will be moving through here, the new moon will be here, as well as our first Aries eclipse. We've got Pluto moving into your 10th house, where you're thinking very, very deeply about what kind of legacy you're creating here while you're on Earth. Mercury moving into your first house, revealing to you secrets from its time in the 12th house and showing you where you've grown and where you can stretch into a new cycle. Venus moving into your second house, bringing you financial opportunities as you connect with others and as you connect with new ideas. And Mars moving into your third house of community and immediate environments, perhaps feeling proactive about how you can get involved in neighborhood spaces that are currently looking for nurturance and help. Let's go ahead and take a peek at what we've got in store for you this month in the cards. I've pulled out the Chariot, which is our card for the year, as well as the Emperor, which is the card that affiliates with Aries season. So this spread will show us a little bit about how this month connects you to these broader narratives. Okay. All right. So we've got a major arcana here, and we've got the beginning and the end of cycles. The Hierophant shows us when we might be looking for a mentor. We might be seeking out some sort of formal, higher learning, however that appears to us. That can be of a traditional sort. We may be undertaking some sort of traditional value lessons this month. That certainly connects with Taurus, as Hierophant is the card that connects with Taurus in the tarot. So there may be something emerging as Mercury moves into your first house that shows to you that it's time to seek out some sort of higher message, some sort of broader channel. You in turn may discover that it's time for you to become that channel. You may find that you have gone through journeys in recent cycles that allow you to tap into the lessons that are now available for you to share with others. You may find that you are entering into a space of offering mentorship to other people. And this connects with two very different feelings that, of course, as they always do, come together in some sort of combined, no. And this event becomes tethered to these sort of two seemingly opposing yet tethered emotions. On one hand, we can see where experiencing new lessons or opening up to some sort of education invites us into a place of new feelings. We are able to connect with new emotions. We're able to open up to new feelings within us, as well as feelings that exist outside of us that we've never been aware of. And so this is an invitation to open up to just the possibility of connection. At the same time, we have the Ten of Wands, which shows us some of the exhaustion and the just tiredness, the cyclical nature of doing this work. The 10 is different from other 10s of other suits in that it's not really an ending. If anything, it shows to us that in order to keep commitment going to that which draws us onward into our passion, we have to somehow figure out how to manage our energy. This shows us that it won't take much to crack open this vessel and release this fire, which would threaten to burn down the entire tree. So it's a practice, it's a skill, it's an art to really figure out how we create balance when we're talking about fire, when we're talking about something that is so potent that it can quickly become dangerous. I could say that this is a card about burnout, and I wouldn't be wrong, but I think it goes much more deeply than that. We always know that we are threatening ourselves in a state of burnout at this current state of the world, at this current state of our economy. And so burnout is a very real thing that we all kind of navigate at this time. And so for you, it may connect to this broader narrative of stepping into a sense of authority as it pertains to figuring out what your alignment is this year. So this makes a lot of sense to me, and I hope it makes a lot of sense to you too, recognizing where there's opportunities to reach out, to become some sort of resource. That feels very Pluto in the 10th house. This feels very Mercury in the first house. We're seeing emotions emerge. We're seeing how the world around us connects to us individually. And the 10 of Wands showing me absolutely some of that 12th house material of how will I manage all of this? What space am I giving myself in the background to decompress in order to keep going? Or what do I believe in that allows me to stay connected to this even when I want to give up? Welcome, Gemini. Gemini, for you this time signals a time where you are feeling more social, wanting to engage in community, hang out with friends, with all of this activity happening in your 11th house. You also may be thinking about the future, especially now that Mars has finished up and is done kind of terrorizing your first house and your sense of self. You may be thinking about where you go next and what is kind of down the line for you in the long term. We've got Mars moving into your second house, bringing your concerns now to your skills and how you use them to attain resources. We've got Venus moving into your first house, again, amplifying that need to go out and connect with others, Venus now clearing your 12th house and making room for Mercury to move in. So there's some behind the scenes activity happening while you're kind of parsing through what Venus was doing in the 12th house, and Venus then sort of sharing what she was up to in there by connecting with others in the first house. So let's take a look at what this season is bringing you. Okay. Oh, got some people who want to fall out. Gemini's ready to pop off. Gemini's like, let me out of here. Okay. All right. Big energy in here. Okay. So right away, this makes me think of perhaps Venus moving into the first, thinking about what we are ready to create, what we're ready to sort of pull from the depths of our subconscious space, right? As Venus moves through there and kind of collects things at the beginning of Aries season, once moving into Gemini, sort of collecting what we want to put to use now moving forward, connecting with what our powers of creation are at this time, and perhaps using these powers of creation, deciding what choices we're making in this moment. If the Wheel of Fortune connects with the Nine of Swords in this narrative, then it may be that you have the opportunity this season to make a change in your life that permanently pulls you away from some of a sense of anxiety you might be carrying. This might represent what we are uncovering in the 12th house. We know Uranus and the North Node are up there, so there's certainly some mental health material being excavated, being brought to the surface. And that might be what Venus comes through the first house with, is some information about what we want to create that helps change the state of this. Seeing that this, as it connects to the broader narrative of the year of the Chariot and the season of the Emperor, recognizing that you have the power to create some sense of something this month that gains or fosters a sense of personal authority for you, that allows you deeper alignment of your conscious and unconscious material. I love this. This feels so healthy. This feels so positive. This feels like if I put in the energy this month and focus on what I can create for myself, I can create a clear distance from this experience I've been having and the anxiety it's connected to. Welcome, Cancer. Let's break down Aries season. We've got a lot of cardinal activity happening for you. Your angles are lit up this month. We have the sun and the new moon happening in your 10th house, as well as the eclipse. So there's big career activity going on for you, big legacy vibes coming through, a peek into what you are building while you're here on Earth. Pluto moves into your 8th house, giving you perhaps insight into your earning power. We've got Mars coming into the 1st, where we see you able to assert yourself in new ways now that Mars has cleared out so much gunk in your 12th house space. Mercury moving into your 11th house, bringing you insights into your friends, your communities, your sort of plans for the future. And we've got Venus moving into your 12th house, perhaps bringing some balm, some reconciliation to everything that Mars kind of ripped open in that subconscious space. So let's see what we've got in store for you this season, Cancer. This is beautiful energy. So we see the Empress. We see the Knight of Cups. We see the Page of Pentacles. This might be a time of sort of some various actions taking place. I mentioned in the transit portion that There's planets hanging out in neighboring houses, kind of tinkering around with maybe related things, but they don't see each other. And I get this vibe from this spread right here. We see the Empress, which is absolutely a time of considering what we have the capacity to grow at this time, being a foundation for something beautiful. And this also includes a sense of rest. I love this Venus coming into Taurus. This is very Venus energy. This is very Taurus energy. This is a vibe of slowing down a little bit. This is a vibe of tuning into our current physical state, what it is that we have to offer ourselves and others as resources, and maybe just restoring some of that for yourself in this calmer time. Being invited to or feeling compelled to sweep someone off their feet in some way or in some other form, showing someone how you really feel, demonstrating visibly and tangibly some form of emotional connection with someone or someone's. This can be in the work that you do. This can be in the way that you engage with others. This can be very Mars in the first house in Cancer, showing us that we want to this season initiate demonstrating emotional care for others, seeing what that opens up for us as well. This opening up this process of emotional connection and feeling empowered to share that with others. And that may stem from the Empress as well, this being one of the resources that you're able to connect to others with. And the Page of Pentacles, meanwhile, perhaps this connects with Mercury moving through your 11th house. This might connect with the idea of thinking about what you want to be doing for resources in the future, thinking about what you want that 11th house space to look like. We're just receiving ideas. We're not necessarily acting upon them. That happens with the Knight. So with the Page, we are just getting insight around what financial opportunities exist, what creative opportunities exist in terms of putting our energy into something tangible. And so while this emotional energy is real and palpable and being expressed this season, the tangible earth energy is something that might be on the back burner or slowly accumulating energy over time, not something that we're acting on yet, but just getting a sense of. And that might also connect to Venus ruling Mercury in Taurus. So we're just getting some information about what we want for this space and getting an idea of how we might initiate those actions, but not doing it just yet. And connecting this with this broader narrative, perhaps part of this personal reset and assessing what resources we have at this moment is a form of formalizing, establishing a sense of authority to share those resources with others, to be motivated internally, but also able to turn around and share what you discover with others. These cards are sequential after all. And when we tie this to the Chariot, we see where realigning kind of what our resources are and how we give them to others and deciding how we demonstrate community care being a part of the alignment with the Chariot this year, which is also the card of Cancer. So aligning those shadow energies, getting clear on what's beginning to manifest in the ether, getting clear on what we currently have within us so that we can move forward in alignment with all of those resources and conversation. Welcome, Leo. We have the sun moving through your 9th house, which is its house of joy. We have a new moon in this 9th house as well. We've got Pluto moving into the 7th house of relationships, gaining an understanding of the interpersonal power that we have. We have Mars moving into your 12th house, going into a space of mystery, purging a space of mental health, getting clear on what we need up there. The sun and the moon, as well as the eclipse in your 9th house, showing you where exposing yourself to new cultures, new spaces, new messages shows you more about yourself and where you're going. Mercury moving into your 10th house, zooming out a bit and demonstrating concern about the 10th house legacy space. What are we doing here? What are we contributing to the world at this time. Meanwhile, Venus hanging out in your 11th house, wanting to connect with friends, wanting to maybe refill rosters that were emptied by Mars during that retrograde. So let's get a look at what is going on for you this Aries season, Leo. Okay. Wow, the sixes are here. Okay, so we are looking at a time where we're reflecting perhaps on the past. This may also be indicative of gaining ideas and insights about the kind of community care that we want to be connected with. So this could be Mars moving through your 12th house, getting clear on what sort of mental health needs you have and extending that outward to those you share community with. What feeds me and helps me move through my mental health phases and cycles, what I use to regulate my existence here on Earth, could also be helpful to those I share space with, could also be helpful to those I care about deeply. The Six of Wands sort of continues that thread. We have an instance of being recognized by our communities, being validated for our efforts, being rewarded for what we are currently working on or what we've recently accomplished. But there's also something community bound in this as well. And this might be connected to the 10th house and 11th house activities happening for you this season. A sense of being recognized for what you want to contribute while also deepening your connection to interlocking systems, recognizing that you are part of the community that is recognizing you, but recognizing too that the community you're a part of is pivotal and vital to the work that you offer them. So recognizing the sort of mutuality in both the personal successes and also the communal successes, sharing that with others, recognizing that a victory for self is a victory for the community, and seeing how you can contribute to that even farther. And this has a sharing element to it as well. The 10 of Pentacles is not the 9. The 9 is where I actually have the postcard here. The 9 is where we look upon everything that we've built for ourselves. But the 10 is where we share that with others. The 10 is where we recognize that we are part of a system, we are interdependent, and we want to share our resources with those we love. And only then are we reaching kind of the crux or the climax of this journey. It's not just enough to have what I have for me. I need to know that the people I love and care for are also able to benefit from the resources that I have. So this feels really beautiful. This feels like a time where you are stepping outside of yourself just a bit, recognizing where you have the potential to gain personal, individual recognition, but also seeing where it ties into those around you, seeing that what you want for yourself is also what you want for others. That feels very Leo rising with an Aquarius 7th house axis. I am out here being amazing, and it's only fair that other people get to do so too. So how do I make that happen? Tying this into the broader themes of the season, where we've got the Emperor for Aries season, this being something that helps you fortify this sense of authority where you are a leader, but able to guide others to what you discover. And also this being an opportunity to align some of our shadow elements with our conscious elements, recognizing that self is not self without an audience, self is not self without a community, self is not self without others. And so how do I balance out both of these somewhat seemingly competing forces and bring them into balance so that I can move forward with clarity and integrity? Welcome, Virgo. The sun, the new moon, and the eclipse are all taking place in your 8th house space of shared resources, of depth psychology, of shadows, of mystery. We've got Pluto moving into your 6th house of routine, of service, of the body. We have Mars moving into your 11th house, really anchoring and driving home that point I made about Mars in Cancer being concerned with community, being concerned with friendships, and also being concerned with what care looks like in the future. Mercury moving into your 9th house, bringing you new perspectives, bringing you travel opportunities perhaps, and that being ruled by Venus moving into the 10th house of career and legacy. So maybe thinking about where we're going, especially now that Mars has cleared out that space. What do you want in there? Connecting with people and attracting resources around what it is you're contributing to Earth here in the course of your lifetime. So let's take a look at what the cards say about this Aries season for you, Virgo. Okay, so we've got 2 8s here and a Knight. The Knight showing us where we are ready to act on a plan, where we are ready to put something into motion. The Page is when we receive ideas about what we want to begin acting on, and the Knight is when we recognize we have the steps laid out, we have the energy mustered, and we have a blueprint to follow. So we've got everything set up and we're ready to be the worker bee, we're ready to get to work, we're ready to make things happen. The 8 of Wands echoes this idea in the sense that the messages around perhaps what we're ready to begin building and working on are ready to go. We're ready to send out some sort of communication, some sort of missive, some sort of message that announces what we're up to, that moves very quickly. We see these carrier pigeons taking flight. We are sort of leaving the ground and sending the message outward where it's going to be received. All of these pigeons will drop something off, will communicate something, and it's happening swiftly. So on one front, we have some hard, tangible work coming into the fray. We have some clear ideas of what we can get focused on and get moving toward. We're ready to share some of this with others. We're ready to share some of the ideas, some of what the potential is going to be, what the vision is, being Wands. And yet the 8 of Cups brings our attention to an emotional process that's happening within us this period. This may be some of the eighth house material that we're looking at, right? We've got planets in the 10th and the 9th. We're ready to get to work. We're building something legacy-wise. We're connecting with people in the 11th house. And yet in the 8th house, we have something a little more mysterious happening. This upright tells us that we're ready to sail away from something, even though it pains us to do so. We've emotionally invested in something. We have put in all the work to get as far into the suit as the 8s. So we think we're almost done, and yet we're called to walk away. However, at this time, during this season, you may be going over something that you thought you were ready to walk away from, that you considered walking away from, but there's something left in here that we need to look at. There's something that you want to go over first before you make that decision. Or perhaps ultimately you decide not to walk away. That's perhaps a lot of what the eclipse may reveal to you at the very end of Aries season. Do I stay or do I go? So all of this connecting back with these larger themes, the Emperor being our card for the season, the Chariot being our card for the year, recognizing that as we get to work and as we send out these sort of missions or these missives into the world, we are establishing for ourselves and perhaps building in real time a sense of authority, a sense of what we are kind of charging forth into, where we are leading others. This 8 of Cups shows me that we want to get really clear on something before we formalize this sense of authority. And that certainly connects me to the Chariot. What shadow energies do I need to get clear on so that as I continue this journey toward the Chariot over the course of this year, I continue to dig up anything in my subconscious that is contributing to my subconscious and conscious selves being in misalignment. So what do I need to go over in my psychic, subconscious, psychological space, 8th house? What do I share with others that I need to review so that I can move forward with clarity and integrity? Welcome, Libra. This month, the sun is moving through your 7th house. The eclipse is happening in your 7th house, as well as this first new moon. We have Mars moving into your 10th house. All of your angles being activated at this time. Mercury moving into your 8th house of sort of subconscious spaces. So we've got a lot of one-on-one energy with the 7th house activation. We have a lot of legacy energy with Mars moving through the 10th now. And yet there's something internal happening as well when Mercury moves into the 8th house. We are realigning some of our psychological influences. We're getting clear on what resources we need that we share with others. And Venus moving into the 9th house, connecting you with new cultural experiences, new perspectives, new conversations, perhaps that you didn't anticipate with people from different societies, different countries, all showing you kind of a bit about who you are and where you want to go next for you. And we've also got Pluto moving into your 5th house. This is showing you a preview of what the power of attraction is in your world, what it is to express yourself, what powers of self-expression you currently have, and where it's time to tap into some deeper powers. Okay, so let's get a sense of what the cards want you to know about this time. Okay. Two majors. So we've got some big energy for you this month, Libra, that may connect to seasons around this as well. This may be a story that started before Aries season and is going to extend beyond Aries season. This is some pretty big energy here. We also see some cards that are kind of close together in sequence. The chrysalis comes just a couple cards before the tower. So interesting stuff here, very electric. The tower shows us that something is being disrupted. Okay, there's a full moon in your 1st house this season, and that all of this is so angular for you certainly suggests that there's something being upended, something being activated where you are just not capable of going back to whatever existed before this revelation, right? And this may be Pluto involved as well, because Pluto moving into the 5th certainly pulls us into a deep place, a deep instinctual place where we have to get clear on kind of our motivations. And so this might be a month that really reveals itself to you in a big way. The chrysalis suggests that you are moving into a space of transition. You are moving into a space behind closed doors for a period. And that might be Mercury moving into your 8th house, kind of needing to take a little space, needing to gain some perspective. The chrysalis is where we go when it's time to transform, when we need to kind of pull out of ordinary life for just a moment in order to allow for deep transformation to occur. It can't happen while we're going about our business day to day, acting like things are normal. Something deep within needs to emerge, and these are absolutely connected, is the feeling that I get. Something, maybe you need to go within yourself in order to allow something to emerge in some electric way. Perhaps you need to go into the chrysalis once this revelation arrives and you need some private space to go deal with it. In the middle here, we have the 7 of Pentacles, which shows us that we are in a period of assessment. We are getting a sense of what we've been growing, what we think about it, what's showing up here. Do I like it? Am I disappointed? Is this what I expected? From here, we begin to make changes. Maybe we need to go back and kind of replant, start over. Or if things look good from here, we move into the 8 of Pentacles, which is where we begin to systemize whatever we just tried. We go, oh, that worked really well. Okay, great. Let me make that into the standard. Let me solidify that this is how I do things, and now I'm going to do a bunch of it because I have systemized everything for myself. So this is the period at which you make those decisions. This is where you look at what you've got in front of you and you decide whether or not it's up to your standards or your par. That may also connect us with this story. Perhaps something is not to your expectations, and this is the moment of the Tower, in which you then retreat, recalculate, allow something to die off or shed, let go of some sense of disappointment, and allow yourself to be transformed from there. It may be that you do like what you see, and maybe that suddenly changes everything. Maybe you like what you see, and suddenly you have a revelation where you didn't think this was possible, and now here you are. And that sends you into a place of, well, I need to go into my private space and calculate how I'm going to do more of this now that I've had this revelation. This is not a negative energy of the Tower. I know it scares us sometimes when it shows up, but it really just shows us that something unexpected is happening. It might be connected to, I wish I had done this differently, and that's why I don't like what I see in the 7, but it is ultimately a challenge of ego more so than it is of external events. It is typically that we have to adjust to what's going on, and that might be what the chrysalis is inviting you into. Connecting this to the broader narrative of our seasonal card, the Emperor, and our yearly card, the Chariot, I certainly see where this is a pivotal moment in which you make decisions that you kind of anchor into this foundation of authority as you move about the world and lead others. And this also ties into this narrative of aligning our subconscious and conscious energies. If something is not the way we want it to be at this moment, we can go within, we can transform it, and that is absolutely a process that brings us closer to the Chariot, because we are getting clear on some subconscious material that is upsetting us or that is not going the way that we expected, and we can catch that and heal some of that now, rather than continue onward and keep moving moving into nothing, perhaps, or like moving in ways that are not smooth and fluid. Welcome, Scorpio. This Aries season, this Aries new moon, and our first Aries eclipse are all happening in your 6th house of service, health, and routine. We've got Pluto moving into your 4th house of emotional body and home and our upbringing, which means that you'll be looking deeply at sort of the power that you carry within your emotional self. Mars moving into your 9th house, showing you where you feel called to defend your philosophies regarding perhaps mutual care or what nurturance looks like. Mercury moving into your 7th house this season means that your conversations will turn to a one-to-one focus, looking at your romantic and business partnerships. Meanwhile, Venus moving into your 8th house suggests looking at perhaps new financial opportunities, new shared resources becoming accessible to you. And so let's get a sense of what we've got going on this month for you, Scorpio. Okay. All right. Okay, so we've got the Knight of Wands, who shows us an energy of kind of up and away. Something is taking flight. Maybe this is Mars in the 9th house, for example. Something creative, something passionate within us is ready to move, ready to be shared, ready to kind of make waves, airwaves maybe, if we're taking flight. And so there's something that's ready to lift off. You're ready to put something into the world through tangible actions and expressions. And this certainly goes hand in hand when we see the 2 of Pentacles, because anything that's ready for liftoff is going to need to be tethered to something on the ground. Or conversely, something that stretches upward into new territory up here needs to be grounded equally by something down here on the ground. Let's frame it that way. So we have a question of balance coming into play. It makes sense with everything in your 6th house of routine. You'll be made aware of any situations that are not helping your sense of routine, that are interrupting your sense of routine, and you'll be making strides this month to bring yourself into a sense of balance so that anything you're expanding into has an equal and balanced sort of recoil so that you can keep these kind of plates spinning even as they begin to move. And then we have the Magician, which is absolute like lineup of powerful energy. This is a sign that we've got the tools that we need to make things happen. We are able to line up kind of our resources at the same time as our ideas are coming together, which means that we're able to kind of make a plan for what we want to create at this time. Connecting this to the broader energy of the Emperor, which is our card for the season, as well as the Chariot, which is our card for the year, we can certainly see where in order to kind of keep the authority within the Emperor feeling upright, feeling strategic and leading, we may really need to focus on this Knight of Wands and this Two of Pentacles energy. However, we absolutely see that the Magician, being just a few cards before the Emperor, shows us where we are kind of lining up these resources. If we play our cards right and we keep things in balance, everything kind of lines up to move forward. And that certainly shows us where the Chariot fills in too. This is a broader narrative of the year where we're looking at how am I getting my shadow elements brought to the surface to work in alignment with my conscious efforts and energies. And so by doing this, by allowing ourselves to take flight, but also rooting down into the earth while we do so, this helps us make the best use of our tools so that when we put what we desire into motion, we don't find ourselves confronted by steps we didn't take that we weren't aware of in our subconscious, or steps we were taking to maybe self-sabotage or not use our resources properly based off of sort of what our subconscious space is processing. So awesome stuff. I love to see this. Welcome, Sag. Aries season. Our Aries new moon and our first Aries eclipse will be taking place in your 5th house of self-expression, of creativity and play, and of children. We have Pluto moving into your 3rd house of communication and the mind and our peers, our immediate environment, showing that you may be really thinking about and getting down into the nitty-gritty of kind of what goes on in your immediate spaces, what power your mind has, what power your kind of rituals have. What does that look like for you? We have Mars moving into your 8th house, showing us that you may be becoming in charge of shared resources. You might be someone who's called upon to distribute resources in some way. You might be someone who is called to strategize individually or with a team about what kind of the rest of everyone else will be up to. So this might be a time when you're stepping into some nurturing power. Mercury moving into your 6th house shows that you are thinking about your routines. You're thinking about your day-to-day life, kind of your health, how your body moves from day to day. Meanwhile, Venus moving into your 7th house shows that there's a focus on your one-on-one relationships and how you interact with romantic people, romantic partners, business partners, and essentially kind of what conversations you want to be getting into this month. So let's take a look at what we've got in store for you, Sagittarius. Okay. All right. 2 7s and a 5. All right. So we are in a position where we are sort of defending our accomplishments. This immediately pulls me to Mars in the 8th house, even maybe Venus in the 7th house, right? We are having conversations with people around what we've done, what we are defending. And this is defending in the sense of I've made it here and people kind of want to come for what I have. I've made it here and people want to be where I am. I've made it here and people want to discredit me. right? So there's something here about kind of taking a stand for oneself around what we've accomplished, what we're known for. The Seven of Cups, meanwhile, is showing us that we might be confused about what choices we're able to make at this time. This usually shows us where we are faced with a few options, and each of them has something enticing about them, and yet each of them has something maybe secret about them, or there's something nefarious going on under the surface of something that seems promising to us. So we have to get really clear on kind of what emotional imprints are informing whatever we're making of the options that are available to us. Whatever we think we need to choose is based on something we've experienced before that has colored our emotional response. The Five of Swords, meanwhile, shows us where there's a situation that we must walk away from. We might have some conflicting ideas, some conflicting perspectives with someone. This could be an 8th house situation. This could be a Pluto in the 3rd house situation, where I am out here in these streets in the 3rd house in my neighborhood, recognizing that I'm at an impasse with another person or another entity. Something that I want goes up against something that someone else desires. And so what power do I have in this moment? Do I need to walk away? Is this kind of a moot argument? So this very clearly connects to the Seven of Cups to me. This idea, this kind of gives me a pick your battles vibe, especially since we know we're coming in hot with the 7, knowing that we're going to be defending ourselves. So what are you defending yourself against? What is it worth for you to invest in defending yourself around? How do you choose what you walk away from and what isn't worth your energy and your effort? Where do you recognize that some battles will not be won and it's time to put your sword down? Emotions are really going to color this for you this month. We've got fire, we have water, and we have air. So these two energies are kind of maybe antithetical. I'm going to stay and fight and I'm going to win. I'm on top. I'm going to stay and fight and no one's going to win. We're going to walk away. What am I going to choose? And what previous situations are showing up for me to really analyze this? What's coloring how I decide this? Connecting this to our broader narrative of the Emperor, our card for the season, and the Chariot, our card for the year. This feels like you have the opportunity to get really clear on where you want to go, what kind of authority figure you are, really showing us, again, the sun, moon, and eclipse, first eclipse in Aries showing up in your 5th house. How do I express myself? What is my role? What is my creation? And what I put energy into creating this month is going to decide what sense of authority I feel, or perhaps how I go about creating that this month. Whatever is motivating me to create or to establish or to express myself is going to color what sort of authority I feel I'm connected to. In a broader sense, the Chariot shows us that there's a lot of subconscious material here that wants to be brought to the surface. We need to have these conscious and subconscious or unconscious operations working together. This certainly shows us where we have emotions versus mind, and we want to get clear on who's steering the ship so that we can fully align to our authentic steering wheel. Okay. Hello, Capricorn. This Aries sun, our Aries new moon, and our first Aries eclipse will all be taking place in your 4th house of home, family, emotional body, really revealing how you've grown in this time. This is also where Chiron's hanging out. So how have you kind of managed your emotional inner well-being? We have Pluto moving into your 2nd house, showing you what the earning power of your current skills looks like. Start over there. So Pluto revealing to us kind of what our skills look like and how powerful we feel they currently are, what sort of earning power we kind of feel connected to at this time. Meanwhile, Mars moving into Cancer, into your 7th house, shows that it's time to consider how you are offering care into those one-on-one relationships, how you are both weaving your need for nurturance into how you nurture others one-on-one. Mercury moving into your 5th house brings to your attention how you express yourself, what kind of ideas are coming through, and what sort of sensuality are you currently thinking about as it pertains to, again, self-expression, as well as your creativity stores, how you offer love to others. And Venus moving into your 6th house is offering a bit of maybe reward for work you've been doing, connecting friends to your sense of service and routine, maybe beginning conversations about what kind of service you want to be in at this moment, and connecting with people who can help you further those goals, as well as bringing your attention to your health, wanting you to get a bit of rest perhaps, and just bringing a little softness to your routine. So let's get an idea of what the cards have in store for you, Capricorn. Okay, there's that rest I talked about with the 4 of Swords. Okay, well, for you, Capricorn, Saturn's never far away, right? Let's just acknowledge that. So we definitely have rest on the mind right now. This could also very much connect with this season moving through your 4th house, showing you where you want some alone time, where you want to withdraw a bit and tend to that emotional body, tend to the home needs that you have, tend to whatever tenderness is coming up at this time. And this also shows me Venus in the 6th. Bringing a little more leisure time into your day-to-day, bringing a little more gentleness into your routine can absolutely be helpful at this time. And I love this kind of space away from the hubbub of everything, maybe taking a little bit of a retreat, because something is begging to be finished here. This is a time where we're wrapping something up. This is a time where we are allowing something to end. And for y'all Capricorns, I don't know if you experience this, but for me, I have a really hard time ending something. Thinking that something can be done, thinking that there's not something to be added, just always feeling like there's some ongoing responsibility. And the world here is suggesting that it's time to take a step back and to really get a look at what has finished on its own. What did we let go of in Pisces season that is actually, truly, really, really finished? And where can we allow space to actually let this reflection come to the surface? Notorious Capricorn vibes are, I'm going to keep pushing myself so that I never reach this place of reflection because I don't ever want to look back and feel disappointed. Well, I don't think that this is necessarily an invitation to feel disappointed about what we've accomplished. This is well-earned rest, and this is necessary in order to figure out where you're going to go next. The 3 of Pentacles shows us that there's a community element involved. This could be a time where you are reaching out to people, and again, this maybe connects us to Venus and Gemini too, in terms of where we want to be in service and who we want to work with in order to do that. This could also very much be Mars in the 7th in Cancer, where we're thinking about community care and we are actively pursuing connections to people who can help us build what it is we're trying to build. So, connecting this to our broader narrative with the Emperor and the Emperor as our seasonal card and the Chariot as our card for the year. We definitely see Aries connects with the Emperor, right? And so it makes sense that, again, we said Capricorn feels a big sense of responsibility. What kind of authority is Capricorn trying to develop here? What is Capricorn trying to bring into the world? Aries energy being, again, in that 4th house of home, it's important to our sense of authority to give ourselves this downtime, to give ourselves this space. And that really connects with the Chariot as well, because if we keep pushing beyond our limits, if we don't let things end, that all gets suppressed into our deep subconscious and unconscious spaces. And that absolutely confounds our sense of direction when we think, well, I'm supposed to be initiating something, I'm supposed to be responsible for something, and yet if I don't know when something ends, how can I know when it's appropriate to start and whether or not I have the right tools? So this is an important time for you. Allow this to be an ending so that you can start with fresh eyes and get a sense of where your perspective is going to be really helpful in building this community care. Hello, Aquarius. This Aries sun, this Aries new moon, and our first Aries eclipse will all be happening in your third house of community, neighborhood, local environment, peers, and the mind. Pluto moves into your first house. So congratulations, you're about to go through a radical change. The first house of identity, recognizing where you have untapped power that needs to be expressed, where you recognize that you are bound to something from the past that is preventing you from moving forward and beginning the dissolution of that entity. Mars moving into your sixth house, it's house of joy, connecting you with your sort of efforts of community care, connecting you with where you can be of service to others, and also bringing your attention to your own body's needs, considering where nurturance for you also nurtures those around you. Mercury moving into your fourth house, showing you where your mind is maybe going behind the scenes a bit, entering into the emotional body, getting a sense of what the needs are there. And Venus hanging out in your fifth house, it's house of joy too. Getting to play, getting to connect with others in a loving way, getting to be curious, getting to open up to questions, and doing so from an experience of excitement and play, fun, really being in store for that. So let's get a sense of what the cards bring up for you, Aquarius. Okay. So the Queen of Cups showing us a little bit of that fourth house vibe, that Mercury entering into the fourth house and showing us where we just want to come home to ourselves a bit, where we want to tap back into this space that we carve out for ourselves, where we carve out space for our intuition, and how the emotional tending we do supports our intuitive powers. The Two of Wands showing us where we want to go next. What's going to happen? What are we going to do? This feels a bit like all of this activity in the third house. Things are opening up for me in my immediate environment, and I'm going to start to make a plan about what that looks like for me, what I want to be doing in these spaces, what I want my day to be able to evolve into soon. And the Lovers, certainly very closely connected with the Chariot. The Lovers showing us where we are kind of reaching for ourselves, thinking about the story of the Gemini twins and how they share immortality, one twin being on Earth while the other is in the deep ether, and they trade. And so while this card often points to, or is often read as a symbol of connectedness with another soul, and that could absolutely be true. This is Venus in the fifth. This is very, I'm gonna find a play friend, right? It's absolutely Venus and Gemini energy. But at the same time, it's also finding ourselves. Similar to this Chariot, which I'll bring in a moment, we are doing this work to align our kind of dual mind powers, our ether mind with our earth mind, figuring out the balance of when they trade, when we allow space for them to take turns, and how we anchor their journeys. And so this could absolutely be a bit of Pluto in the first as well, getting a sense of what my power looks like and where have I been suppressing my own power, where have I been missing myself in the ether, and how can I bring more of that to the forefront. So again, we'll bring this into the broader narrative of our Emperor, our seasonal card, as well as the Chariot, our card for the year. And we can see that all this Aries energy is connecting you to a sense of where you are going to go next. And so it makes a lot of sense to be working on these themes, figuring out what space we need to carve out for our feelings, for our intuitive restoration, what we want in our day-to-day world and how we want to expand that, and what our power looks like both within ourselves and within our relationships with others, all leading us to a place of how we lead, how we activate that Aries energy, and how we step into a feeling of authority, genuine authority, where we lead others in our demonstrations. Definitely connects to power, and how this feeds into the Chariot. We certainly see that this card precedes this card. And so it's very literal that by kind of excavating ourselves from the darkness absolutely supports the work of bolstering our subconscious efforts, bolstering the communication between our conscious and unconscious mind, as well as to giving our emotions rather, that space is absolutely connecting us to bringing that shadow into the forefront so that we are moving in alignment. Nobody's bad, nobody's good, nothing within me is like negative. I'm just making space for it all, and I'm aware of it all, and that's how I move forward in alignment and integrity. Last but not least, sweet Pisces, welcome. This sun in Aries, this new moon rather, and this first eclipse are all happening in your second house of resources, of finances, of skills you use to acquire those things. And so really revealing to us some of how that all functions for you. Getting a sense of Pluto moving into the 12th house for the first time, and really gaining an understanding of all of your unconscious attitudes, beliefs, getting a sense of where those hold power over other areas of your life, and getting clear on what you want to excavate here. Mars moving into your 5th house, showing us that you're concerned with expressing yourself as a means of taking care of others, wanting to nurture others, wanting to catalyze care. And maybe this is showing up in your children if you have children, wanting to really advocate for the care that they receive. This can be if we work with children, absolutely. But just showing us self-expression and how it connects to nurturing, caring, and community care. Mercury moving into your 3rd house, it's very natural placement, and just organizing some of your thoughts, getting clear on what your routines are, tweaking and assessing anything that needs to be changed at this time. And then we have Venus moving into your 4th house of home, emotional body, behind the scenes work. And maybe this is connected to just showing you where you need to give a little love to your own self at this time. Give a little kindness to what home looks like. Maybe we're renovating home. Okay, so let's get a sense of what we've got in store for you, Pisces. Okay, this looks like all reversals, which is pretty funny. Okay, yes. All right, so Pisces, you're a little upside down this month, and that's okay. Again, Pluto's moving into your 12th house, so there's all kinds of things, perhaps just being excavated for the first time, being brought to your attention for the first time, and so this might be a time of introspection, right? You've just had everything leave your first house. And that was a lot. There was a lot of noise, a lot of chaos. That was all very much centered around you and who you are and how you show up in the world. So it makes sense to me that at this time you might be reflecting rather than externalizing. With the 3 of Wands reversed, we are pulling back on where we thought we were going. We are taking a look at what our plans were. Maybe we set off on a plan and it did not go the way that we expected. Maybe we got rerouted a few times. That certainly feels very real for Mars having been in your 4th house, just kind of fucking around and finding out for a while. So now we're at a time of, where do I want to go? This might be Mercury moving into the 3rd and just sort of cleaning up what we thought the plan was. Getting a sense of, well, let me rethink this. Let me get clear on what we want to be actually doing in this space. Death reversed, perhaps showing where you have been resisting some sort of transformation. And maybe this is where Pluto's coming into the 12th and saying, well, it's time. Here we are. Anything you haven't wanted to look at, any sort of relinquishing power and surrender that you've been neglecting or trying to defer, the time is now. And so we need to allow ourselves to go through this process. This could also look like finally coming out of this process. As I mentioned, Mars doing a lot of potential damage in your 4th house, or really creating some contention. Perhaps there has been a lot of ego death in that fourth house with Mars. And now finally we're stepping out of this place. This could be a time where you're finally shifting away from this theme. And perhaps you're considering what else you want to step away from. This is certainly a representation of the roles that we play for other people. Upright, the King of Pentacles takes a lot of responsibility for not only itself, but everyone around it. This is someone who is like a manager figure, the sort of stereotypical head of the household vibe. I'm not just thinking about me, I need to think about the resources that everyone in this house needs. So whatever role you've been playing externally for others, you might be thinking that it's time to, I don't know, let go of some of that responsibility. Mars in the fifth might be separating you from how you offer care to other people. Perhaps this is, after all that stuff in the fourth house, perhaps this is a time where you think, I'm going to be more thoughtful or intentional about who I'm offering this care to or who I'm playing this role for. Perhaps I've been playing this role in a way that has not been giving back to me what I need. And therefore, I'm able to consider where I don't want to play this role anymore. This could also be putting something down that you've been responsible for, right? If we're reassessing where we're going, this might mean, oh, it's time for me to step out of playing this role here. I'm no longer fit for this because what I expected didn't work out, and it's time for me to go back to the drawing board. And that means putting this down. Connecting this to the broader cards for this time, the Emperor being our card for the season, the Chariot being our card for the year, you certainly see that in order for you to lead, in order for you to feel a sense of authority, you need to reflect on where you feel out of sorts doing what you've been doing. This is sort of a realignment period, and that absolutely connects with the Chariot as well. There may be a very good amount of shadow energy hanging out in these cards, especially here if we haven't gone through this transformation. If we have, we're absolutely coming out of it saying, welp, thought I was going this way, thought I was going to be this thing. Now I know it's time for me to make changes to that expectation. And that certainly shows us where we see ourselves bringing shadow material into the conscious so that we can, again, move forward fully aligned with what our conscious mind is expecting, as well as what our unconscious mind kind of needs to be able to express in order for us to do this smoothly.